The story ignites on a bustling Manhattan sidewalk, a vibrant tableau of hurried lives and indifferent faces. Amidst the urban cacophony, a small, determined figure emerged. Ruby, an 8-year-old black girl, her eyes wide with a plea that defied the very fabric of the city's relentless pace. She approached James Mitchell, a formidable 45-year-old real estate billionaire and CEO of Mitchell Holdings, his tailored suit a stark contrast to her worn clothes. Her voice, surprisingly clear amidst the din, cut through his thoughts, delivering an astonishing, heartbreaking request. "Please, marry my mom." James froze, the weighty documents he carried almost slipping from his grasp. He stared, disbelief warring with a flicker of something akin to bewilderment. Never in his meticulously structured life, in his world of calculated risks and undeniable power, had a street child dared to present him with such an audacious, intimate proposition. Executives, rushing past in their own self-important bubbles, remained utterly oblivious to the profound, almost surreal, scene unfolding on the busiest corner of the financial district. Ruby, unfazed by his stunned silence, held out a crumpled piece of paper, her small hand trembling slightly, her dark eyes sparkling with a disturbing, almost preternatural intelligence. "My mother needs help," she repeated, her voice carrying an unwavering conviction. "Everything about her is written here." James, the titan of real estate, felt the first chill of unease when she whispered the name next. "Her name is Diana Foster. She works cleaning offices at night." The name, Diana Foster, hit James with the force of a physical blow, a punch to the gut that stole his breath and sent his carefully constructed composure spiraling. 15 years ago, Diana was not merely a brilliant classmate at Harvard Business School. She was his lover, the incandescent light in his ambitious, often solitary world. Their connection had been profound, her mind a mirror to his own, only brighter, more idealistic. He remembered her trust, her boundless energy, her groundbreaking research, the very bedrock of his current empire. And then came the day he betrayed her, a cowardly, calculated act that echoed with sickening clarity in his mind. He had stolen her research, systematically dismantling her dreams, and orchestrated her public humiliation, leading to her expulsion from Harvard on false charges of plagiarism. "Diana Foster," James repeated, his voice barely a whisper, betraying a mixture of shock and a deep, buried guilt that made Ruby tilt her head, studying him with an unnerving curiosity. She mentioned my name." Ruby shook her head, her innocence a sharp blade. "She doesn't know I'm here. But I saw your picture in her yearbook. She always talks about how you were friends a long time ago, before everything went wrong." The girl paused, her small, knowing eyes fixed on James's face. "She never tells me exactly what happened, but sometimes she cries when she looks at that picture." The world seemed to spin around James, the skyscraper-lined canyon of Manhattan blurring at the edges. For 15 years, he had meticulously managed to convince himself that Diana had moved on, that she had found success, perhaps even forgotten him. The crushing idea that she was now cleaning offices, possibly even within his own building, while he reveled in a billion-dollar empire built directly upon her stolen work, was almost unbearable. "Why do you think I should help?" James managed to ask, fighting the memories that were beginning to flood his mind like an emotional avalanche, threatening to bury him in regret. Ruby calmly unfolded the crumpled piece of paper, her small fingers surprisingly deft, and began to read with the solemn seriousness of a child who had been forced to grow up far too fast. "My mother works 3 jobs. During the day, she cares for elderly people at Sunset Manor Nursing Home. In the afternoon, she tutors neighborhood children in math. And at night, she cleans offices downtown." Each word was a fresh stab in James's chest, a painful reminder of the stark reality of Diana's struggle. "We've lived in a shelter on 15th Street since I was 5, Ruby continued, her voice unwavering. "My mom always says things will get better, but I can see she's really tired. She studies at night too, trying to finish an online course, but sometimes she falls asleep over her books." James closed his eyes for a fleeting moment, a ghost of Diana's determined face haunting his thoughts. She had always been the most fiercely determined person he had ever known. To imagine her struggling like this, alone, with a young daughter, while he inhabited a luxurious Manhattan penthouse, was a torment he hadn't anticipated. "Because you two know each other," Ruby said, her innocent logic piercing through his turmoil, answering the question he had almost forgotten to ask. And because my mom always said you are very smart, but that something happened that made her have to start over on her own. She never says anything bad about you, she's just sad. The brutal innocence of that observation nearly knocked James off his feet. Ruby, in her pure, unblemished honesty, didn't know she was talking to the very man who had systematically ruined her mother's life, who had stolen her dreams and left her with nothing but an unimaginable struggle. "Where does your mother work now?" James asked, forcing his voice to remain steady, even as a terrible, icy suspicion began to form, solidifying in the pit of his stomach. "In the Whitmore Tower building," Ruby replied, oblivious to the storm brewing within him. "She cleans the offices on the 41st to 51st floors. She always comes home very late, with her hands hurt from the cleaning products." James's blood ran cold. Whitmore Tower. It was the very building where his main office was located, on the 42nd floor. Diana had been literally just a few feet away from him all these years, cleaning the offices built with money that should have been hers. While he closed million-dollar deals without ever knowing she existed, Ruby continued, seemingly oblivious to the devastating impact of her words, innocent sentences that were tearing down his constructed reality. "She always comes home with a sore back and swollen feet. But she never complains. She says, honest work is good work, even when it's hard." How did you find out about me?" James asked, his voice barely a whisper, a desperate attempt to grasp at some shred of control. "I found her yearbook under her bed when I was looking for clean socks," Ruby explained, her gaze direct. "There was a picture of you two together, smiling. You had your arm around her, and she looked really happy." Ruby looked directly into James's eyes, her gaze unnervingly piercing. "I looked up your name on the library computer. You got really rich in real estate, didn't you? There are even articles about you in magazines." James nodded slowly, a dawning, terrifying realization settling upon him. This 8-year-old girl, through sheer, innocent persistence, was connecting dots that could unravel and destroy everything he had meticulously built. But more than that, in her candid vulnerability, she was, paradoxically, offering him something he never thought he would have again, a chance at redemption. "My mom is very proud," Ruby said, carefully folding the crumpled paper. "She would never ask anyone for help, especially not someone from her past. But I'm not proud. I'm asking because she deserves better, and because—" Ruby hesitated, as if revealing an important, secret burden. "Because sometimes I hear her crying in the bathroom, thinking I don't hear her." The tears came without warning, streaming down James's face, cold and shocking. In that moment, on that busy sidewalk, he finally understood the full, brutal extent of his betrayal. He hadn't just destroyed Diana's career. He had systematically destroyed her entire life, leaving her to struggle alone, to raise a daughter in conditions no woman, especially one as brilliant as Diana, should ever have to face. "She talks about you fondly," Ruby said, her voice surprisingly gentle when she saw his tears, a child's compassion offered to the man who had caused so much pain. "She says, you had big dreams together before things got complicated. Maybe you can have big dreams again." As James looked at this brave child, this unexpected messenger who had walked miles through downtown Manhattan to find him, a chaotic mixture of panic, raw admiration, and a fierce determination he hadn't felt in years washed over him. Ruby didn't know it, but she had just given him something far more valuable than any deal he had ever closed. A chance to correct the biggest, most unforgivable mistake of his life. There, on the busy street corner, where executives rushed by in pursuit of their own selfish dreams, James Mitchell finally realized that he had spent 15 years building an empty empire, a hollow monument to his greed, while the only person who truly mattered, the source of his initial wealth and his deepest regret, was struggling to survive just a few feet away. And her daughter, a girl brave enough to confront a billionaire stranger, was offering him a second chance he didn't even know he deserved. That night, the bustling energy of Manhattan, usually a balm to James's restless ambition, offered no solace. Instead, the weight of his past pressed down on him, a suffocating shroud woven from regret and a dawning dread. He impulsively cancelled all his appointments, the glittering world of finance, his carefully constructed kingdom of deals and power, momentarily rendered irrelevant. Driven by an unseen force, he retreated to his opulent office on the 42nd floor of Whitmore Tower. The irony, a bitter twist of fate, was a physical presence in the room. Diana Foster, the very woman whose brilliant mind had conceived the project that had catapulted him to billionaire status, had been toiling just a few floors below him, an invisible shadow, scrubbing floors, enduring the thankless labor of a night cleaner. He pulled up the building's temporary employee system on his laptop, his fingers hovering over the keyboard before typing her name. There she was, Diana Foster, employee of Sunrise Services, assigned to floors 40 to 50, Monday through Friday, night shift. Salary, a paltry $12 an hour. The numbers screamed at him, a brutal, undeniable indictment. His sprawling company, built entirely on her stolen intellectual property, was raking in $12 million a month, while she scraped by, earning what amounted to pocket change in his world. Memories, sharp and painful, began to flood back, not like a gentle tide, but a relentless, crashing wave. Harvard, 2008. Diana, vibrant and passionate, presenting her groundbreaking project on sustainable social housing to their MBA class. The sparkle in her eyes as she explained how entire communities could be transformed through conscious real estate development. The profound, innocent way she had trusted him, sharing every meticulous detail of her research during the long, late nights they spent studying together, their ambitions intertwined. And then came the part James had ruthlessly tried to erase from his memory for 15 years, the indelible stain of his cowardice. The night he had copied all the files from her computer, a furtive, shameful act committed under the cloak of darkness. The morning he had presented her revolutionary idea as his own creation to an eager investor looking for innovative projects, his voice devoid of any tremor of guilt. The triumphant moment he received a check for $2 million for his revolutionary concept. Diana had found out just 3 days later. James still remembered the look on her face when she confronted him, not anger, but a deep, heartbreaking pain that had pierced his fragile conscience. "How could you do this to me, James? I trusted you with everything." But James, a master of manipulation, had played dirty, weaponizing his family connections at the university and his newly acquired wealth. He had falsely accused Diana of plagiarism, fabricating evidence to show she had stolen his idea. The word of a white man from a traditional, influential family against a black woman on a scholarship from a working-class background was not a fair fight. Diana was expelled from Harvard, her academic career destroyed, her burgeoning reputation ruined. And James used that initial $2 million to meticulously build a real estate empire now worth billions. Now, sitting in his silent office overlooking the sparkling, oblivious city of Manhattan, James realized with chilling clarity that he had spent 15 years convincing himself that Diana had moved on, that perhaps she had even found success somewhere else, far from his shadow. The raw, undeniable reality that she was struggling to survive just a few feet away, raising a daughter alone in a shelter, was almost unbearable. His phone vibrated, a sudden, jarring intrusion. It was Miguel, his personal assistant, his voice laced with an unusual, almost hesitant tremor. "Mr. Mitchell, I got the information you asked for on Diana Foster. I think there are some things you need to know." James's gut clenched. "Go on." Miguel's next words were a hammer blow. "She's not just cleaning offices, sir. I've discovered that she's been investigating. Apparently, 3 years ago, she began gathering evidence about questionable real estate development practices in low-income communities." James felt the blood drain from his face, leaving him cold. "What kind of evidence?" His voice was a strained whisper. "Bribes to city council members, forced displacement of families, falsification of environmental reports." Miguel paused, building the dramatic tension, then delivered the final, devastating punch. "And sir, the name Mitchell Holdings appears in many of these documents." James's world began to spin. Diana wasn't just a victim fighting to survive. She was a hunter. "There's more, sir," Miguel continued, clearly terrified now. "She got her law degree through a night program 2 years ago. And she discovered something interesting. She never signed a confidentiality agreement when she was expelled from Harvard. Technically, she can still claim intellectual property rights to that original project." James dropped the phone. The clatter echoed in the vast, silent office. For 15 years, he had operated under the smug assumption that Diana was silenced, defeated, forgotten. But apparently, she had spent all that time preparing, meticulously building her arsenal. Working 3 jobs during the day, studying law at night, quietly gathering evidence that could destroy not just a single company, but the entire corrupt real estate industry in the city. The brave little girl who had approached him, asking him to marry her mother, hadn't known she was offering him more than a romantic second chance. She was offering James's last, desperate opportunity to do the right thing, to somehow find a path to redemption, before Diana, the woman he had wronged, revealed to the entire world who he really was. As New York City sparkled beneath his panoramic window, James Mitchell realized, with a terrifying clarity, that he wasn't the one in control of this situation anymore. Diana Foster, the woman he had betrayed, humiliated, and professionally left for dead, had spent 15 years quietly becoming the only person in the world capable of completely destroying everything he had built. And now, his own daughter had inadvertently handed him the perfect opportunity to either redeem himself or to dig his own grave even deeper. The question that truly terrified him, gnawing at his sanity, was, did Diana also know that Ruby had been looking for him? And if she did, was she using her own daughter as part of a plan far bigger, far more sophisticated, than he could ever possibly imagine? Unbeknownst to James, his sleepless nights and spiraling dread were merely the ripples on the surface of a deep, meticulously planned current. Diana had been orchestrating her revenge, a slow-burning fire of retribution, for the past 3 years. She remained utterly invisible, a ghost in the very machine of his empire, tirelessly gathering evidence while he reveled in his ill-gotten gains. Her brilliance, once stolen and twisted to serve his ambition, was now sharpened, weaponized against him. She had even gained surreptitious access to his personal computer in his office, a testament to his own arrogance and her intimate, bitter knowledge of him. His old college password, the name of a family dog followed by his birth year, remained unchanged, a glaring vulnerability born of his self-assured complacency. Then came Ruby's innocent, audacious plea. When her daughter revealed she had asked James to marry Diana, Diana was initially struck by a profound shock, the sheer audacity of her child's action momentarily stealing her breath. But that shock quickly transmuted, morphing into a cold, profound realization. Her daughter, with a brutal honesty only a child could possess, had inadvertently accelerated her meticulously laid plans. Ruby's raw courage, a direct consequence of Diana's suffering, had pushed the timeline forward in a way Diana herself couldn't have orchestrated. Soon after Ruby's fateful encounter, Diana received a call on the prepaid cell phone she used for her clandestine investigations. It was Marcus Chun, the astute investigative journalist from New York Exposure magazine, who had been her secret ally, working with her for 2 years. Diana, something's changed. James Mitchell has hired a private security firm to investigate you. They're digging through your entire life. Diana's lips curved into a cold, knowing smile. Perfect, she murmured. That means he's afraid. Marcus, sensing the gravity of the situation, pushed back. Are you sure you want to continue? This man has unlimited resources. He can destroy you in ways we can't even imagine. Diana's gaze hardened, fixed on the grimy window of the shelter, a stark reminder of the life he had condemned her to. Marcus, he already destroyed me once. He took my career, my reputation, my future. He left me to clean out the offices built with money that should have been mine. She paused, her voice hardening with steel. The difference is that this time, I'm prepared. Indeed, Diana had spent the last 3 years not only gathering irrefutable evidence against James but meticulously building a network of allies he never knew existed. There was Marcus himself, whose magazine had deep connections to national newspapers, ready to amplify their message. There was Sandra Williams, a federal prosecutor, already independently building a case against systemic corruption in the real estate industry, whose investigation aligned perfectly with Diana's findings. And then, there was something even Marcus didn't know. Diana had quietly located 3 other victims of James Mitchell, individuals whose lives and careers he had ruthlessly destroyed over the years to build his empire. They met weekly, in the hushed, forgotten silence of an abandoned church in Brooklyn. There was Thomas Reed, an accountant whom James had falsely accused of tax fraud, his professional life in tatters. Patricia Lopez, an architect whose groundbreaking design had been shamelessly stolen, leading to her being blacklisted from the profession. And David Kim, a young developer whose burgeoning company was ruined after James fabricated evidence of building code violations. "He finally found out about you," Thomas said during one of their secret meetings, a flicker of satisfaction in his eyes. "My contacts in his legal department say he's in a complete panic." Diana nodded, her gaze sharp. "Good. Panic means mistakes, and mistakes mean evidence." Patricia laughed, a short, bitter sound. 15 years waiting for this. "Are you sure the plan will work?" Diana, with an almost serene confidence, opened a folder brimming with hundreds of meticulously organized documents, damning photographs, and chilling recordings. "It's not just a plan," she said, her voice soft but resonant. "It's a symphony. And each of you is an essential note." What James didn't know was that Diana had spent years documenting not only his overt financial crimes but the entire insidious network of corruption that sustained his empire. Bribes to city council members, falsified environmental reports, the forced displacement of entire communities, all meticulously catalogued and cross-verified. "Is the magazine ready to publish?" Diana asked Marcus. He nodded. 5 pages in the special edition on real estate corruption. "But Diana, your daughter has complicated things. If James suspects you orchestrated his meeting with Ruby." Diana smiled, a chilling, triumphant curve of her lips. "He will suspect. And when he suspects, he will try to confront me. And when he confronts me..." She paused, a shiver running through everyone in the room. "He will discover that the Diana Foster of 15 years ago is dead. The person who survived is someone much more dangerous." David Kim looked at Diana with a mixture of admiration and concern. "What if he tries to hurt you, or hurt Ruby? Then he'll find out that besides being a lawyer, I've learned other skills over the past 15 years, Diana replied, a subtle, almost imperceptible movement as she discreetly touched the digital recorder in her pocket. A conversation she had captured just the night before while cleaning James's office, where he clearly admitted to several damning crimes. "James Mitchell built an empire thinking no one was paying attention. But I've always been here, 3 floors below, cleaning up his mess and documenting every mistake he's ever made." As the others left the abandoned church, Diana remained alone for a few minutes. She looked at Ruby's photo in her worn wallet, her daughter's face her ultimate motivation to never give up, her reason to fight even when everything seemed lost. Ruby had accelerated the timeline. But maybe that was exactly what they needed. James was scared, making mistakes, finally showing his true colors. Soon, he would discover that the humble woman who cleaned his offices had, in her patient, silent pursuit of justice, become the only person in the world capable of completely destroying everything he had lied, betrayed, and stolen for. In the quiet of the abandoned church, Diana Foster finally allowed herself a small, triumphant smile. After 15 years of cleaning up other people's messes, it was time to expose the biggest mess of all. And this time, James Mitchell would be the one to lose everything. The game had begun the moment Ruby handed James that crumpled piece of paper on the sidewalk in Manhattan. What he didn't know yet was that his 8-year-old daughter had just handed him the first piece of a puzzle Diana had been meticulously putting together for years. A puzzle that, when complete, would reveal the image of James Mitchell's own spectacular destruction. James woke on Monday with a strange, unsettling feeling in his gut, a premonition that clawed at the edges of his meticulously ordered world. Over the weekend, he had desperately tried to convince himself that Diana was merely a desperate woman cleaning offices, an insignificant ghost from his past. Yet, something in Ruby's determined gaze continued to bother him, a persistent echo that refused to be silenced. At precisely 9 a.m., his assistant, Miguel, burst into the office without so much as a knock, his face ashen, trembling as he thrust a tablet into James's hand. "Mr. Mitchell, we need to talk now. New York Exposure magazine just published a special report." Miguel's voice, usually calm and efficient, was laced with barely contained terror. 5 pages on corruption in the real estate industry. And you're the main character. James felt the blood drain from his face as his eyes fixed on the damning headline, "The Empire Built on Lies, How James Mitchell Stole Projects and Destroyed Lives to Become a Billionaire. The article began with a jarring photograph of him and Diana at their Harvard graduation, their young faces beaming, a stark, painful contrast to the narrative that followed. It detailed, with surgical precision, exactly how he had stolen her research. But that was merely the opening act. "My God," James murmured, his fingers fumbling as he scrolled down the screen. "They have everything." Photographs of bribes being handed to city council members, chilling recordings of compromising conversations, irrefutable forged documents, fraudulent environmental reports, 15 years of his crimes, meticulously documented and presented with the cold, calculated precision of someone who had spent years tirelessly collecting every shred of evidence. The phone on his desk began to ring incessantly, a relentless assault. Shareholders, investors, lawyers, all demanding answers that James, for the first time in his life, simply couldn't give. "How did they get all this?" James asked, his voice barely a whisper, hoarse with disbelief. Miguel pointed to a specific, damning section of the article. "Read this." The text, stark and unforgiving, stated, "The evidence was gathered over 3 years by attorney Diana Foster, who worked at Mitchell Holdings as a cleaning lady while secretly documenting the company's criminal activities." James dropped the tablet. The clatter echoed in the silent, now suffocating office. Diana wasn't just cleaning his offices, she was systematically, patiently destroying his life from just 3 floors below, while he, in his arrogant oblivion, closed million-dollar deals, completely unaware that every single incriminating document he left on his desk was being meticulously photographed. "There's more, sir," Miguel said, his voice barely audible, clearly terrified. "The FBI just arrived at the building. They have a search warrant." Through the panoramic windows that usually offered him a triumphant view of his dominion, James now saw a different panorama. Press vans pulling up to the street, their hungry cameras pointing directly at his building, reporters scrambling, eager to cover his spectacular fall in real time. His cell phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. "Mr. Mitchell, this is Diana Foster. I think we need to talk. I'm on the ground floor of your building." James descended to the ground floor, each step a leaden weight, like a man walking to his own execution. Diana was waiting in the lobby, no longer the timid student or the invisible cleaner. She stood poised and formidable, impeccably dressed in a sharp, professional suit that contrasted starkly with the cleaning uniforms he now imagined she used to wear. At her side, Ruby held a small briefcase, her gaze a mixture of curiosity and an unsettling pity. "Diana," James managed, his voice hoarse. "Why?" 15 years, James," Diana replied calmly, her voice resonating with years of suppressed pain and unwavering resolve. 15 years cleaning up the mess you left behind, literally and figuratively. 15 years watching you build an empire on top of my work while I struggled to give my daughter some dignity." James looked at Ruby, who was watching him with an unnerving, knowing stillness. "You used your own daughter to manipulate me," he accused, desperation creeping into his voice. "No," Diana said firmly, her eyes holding his. "Ruby acted on her own. She genuinely wanted you to help us. The difference is that I was prepared for any move you made." Diana opened the folder Ruby was carrying, revealing stacks of meticulously organized documents. "Here are the documents for the lawsuit I'm filing against you and your company. Restitution for the profits you made illegally from my research. 15 years of royalties on a project that was rightfully mine." "How much?" James asked, knowing the answer would be devastating, yet needing to hear it. $2.8 billion, Diana stated, her voice devoid of emotion, with interest and punitive damages. She allowed herself a small, cold smile for the first time since they had met again, a smile that promised no warmth, only retribution. Coincidentally, that's exactly the current value of Mitchell Holdings. James felt his legs give way, the reality crashing down on him with brutal force. "This will destroy me completely." "No, James," Diana corrected, her gaze unwavering. "This will give you exactly what you gave me 15 years ago, the opportunity to start over from scratch. The difference is that I never stole anything from anyone to get where I am." Outside, the FBI sirens grew louder, a chilling symphony of justice. James looked out the window and saw federal agents, their blue uniforms stark against the city's grey, entering the building. "You planned all this," James said, finally understanding the full, crushing extent of his defeat. "I prepared for justice," Diana corrected, her voice resolute. "The difference is crucial. You taught me that in this world, people like me have to be 10 times smarter to get half the credit. So that's exactly what I did." Ruby, perhaps sensing the shift, approached James and held out her small hand, her wisdom far beyond her years. "You can still be a good person," she said with the innocent conviction of a child who had seen her mother fight injustice her entire life. "My mom always says it's never too late to do the right thing." James looked at the brave little girl who had changed everything by simply asking him to marry her mother. He didn't know if she was giving him one last, impossible chance at redemption, or merely hastening his own destruction. As the federal agents closed in and the press cameras captured every moment of his public humiliation, James realized that Diana Foster had done something no adversary had ever done in 15 years of ruthless business. She had beaten him at his own game, using the same rules, but with one crucial difference: she had fought for justice, not greed. And now, in the lobby of the very building built with the money that should have been hers, watching the empire he had stolen crumble in real time, James Mitchell finally understood that some debts cannot be paid with money. Some can only be paid with the truth. 6 months later, the dust settled on the ruins of James Mitchell's empire. The once unassailable fortress of Mitchell Holdings was irrevocably dissolved, its vast assets meticulously auctioned off to pay the monumental damages awarded in the lawsuit. James Mitchell, the man who had once commanded billions, was stripped of everything, reduced to working as a real estate agent in a small, anonymous town, living out his days in a meager one-bedroom apartment. His true punishment, he found, wasn't merely poverty, it was irrelevance. No one listened to James Mitchell anymore. He had become precisely what he had always feared most: an ordinary, forgotten, insignificant man, swallowed by the very anonymity he had always disdained. Meanwhile, Diana Foster walked through the hallowed halls of the same Harvard Business School where she had been humiliated and discarded 15 years earlier. But this time, she was not a desperate student. She was a revered guest speaker for a groundbreaking new course, Ethics in Business and Social Justice. The auditorium was packed to capacity, a sea of eager faces, students, professors, and journalists, all wanting to hear from the woman who had brought down one of the largest real estate empires in the country using only her unwavering patience, razor-sharp intelligence, and the discreet lens of a cell phone camera. "True revenge," Diana told the silent, captivated audience, her voice clear and resonant, "is not destroying those who hurt you. It is building something greater than they could ever imagine." In the front row, Ruby, now 9 years old, sat proudly, her small body adorned in the crisp uniform of the prestigious Riverside Academy, the very school attended by the children of the elite who had once so easily disdained her family. Diana had used the staggering $2.8 billion she received in the lawsuit to establish the Foster Foundation for Social Justice, a beacon of hope and a testament to her enduring spirit. The foundation offered crucial scholarships and invaluable free legal support to countless victims of corporate fraud, successfully helping over 300 families in just 6 months, their lives irrevocably changed for the better. As she concluded her address, a young black student approached Diana timidly, her eyes wide with a familiar mix of ambition and uncertainty. "Professor Foster," she began, "I have an idea for an app that could help communities document predatory gentrification, but I don't know if anyone would take it seriously." Diana smiled, a warm, knowing smile that echoed her own struggles 15 years prior. "Tell me about it," she encouraged, her gaze unwavering. "And this time, let's make sure no one steals your dreams." Ruby watched her mother talking to the student, a quiet understanding dawning in her own young eyes. Diana wasn't just helping one person. She was creating an army of individuals who would never again allow themselves to be silenced, equipping them with the tools and the courage to fight for justice. The brave little girl who had once begged a millionaire to marry her mother had, in her innocent plea, initiated a cascade of events far beyond a simple wedding. Ruby had achieved something far more profound: justice for an entire community. Diana, through her own arduous journey, had learned that the best revenge isn't just about exposing those who hurt you. It's about using their pain, their injustices, to build something that actively prevents others from going through the same suffering. It's about transforming your deepest scars into the source of your greatest strength. And as the Foster Foundation continued to grow, expanding its reach and its impact, one simple truth echoed in every case they touched. Justice may be slow, painstakingly slow at times, but when it comes in the hands of those who know how to wield it with purpose and dignity, it comes absolutely, irrevocably complete.